Hi students, this is your instructor Megan, and in this video I want to talk about a common problem that I've seen in many of your sketches, and that is splitting text. Keep in mind that when you're designing, you're creating a path for the reader to read. So the first spread that you create is very visual. It has lots of interesting things to look at, maybe a big picture or big type treatment, something that gets us interested in the story and lets us know what the story is about. But once we're interested, we need to turn the page to the second spread, and we need to be able to read the story. We need to be able to read it really easily. And the way I always explain this is that, there's kind of like a lazy part of your brain. I obviously, as you may have noticed in this class, like to approach design from a Gestalt psychology perspective. So I like to think about design as a way of making things that people can read, that people can use, and in order to do that, you need to know how people see and how they read and how they interpret visuals. And so keep in mind that you have what I'm going to call the lazy part of your brain. Every human brain has a part in the very back right above the brain stem that researcher and designer Don Norman calls the visceral brain, or the lizard brain. It's the part of your brain that doesn't really do high-level thinking. It doesn't really do anything to help you be social. What it does is it just reacts to stimuli. So when you wake up in the morning and it's still dark out and you kind of don't feel like getting up, it's that visceral part of your brain that says, no, it's dark, we should be asleep. When you're walking home late at night and a squirrel or something jumps out in front of you on the sidewalk and it scares you, the visceral part of your brain is the brain that makes you scared, the part that goes, ugh, when you see that. And then, of course, the thinking part of your brain, the reflexive part, it says, oh, no, it's just a squirrel, everything's okay. But that shock you first get when you just see something jump in front of you comes from your visceral brain. And so the visceral part of your brain also is where you have this lazy voice that sort of goes, nah, whenever it's confronted with work. And so when you're presenting a story, especially a long article like the ones you've been tasked with designing for, you want to avoid appealing to the lazy part of the brain in such a way that the lazy brain will just give up. So the brain, as it reads the article, is looking for an excuse to give up reading. It's looking for a place to bail. And so you have to design the text in such a way that it's very simple and easy to read. Now, this design that I've put together in front of you has a couple problems, a couple areas where the lazy brain might be inclined to bail. And the first is this pull quote over here on the left. This pull quote is interrupting the flow of the text. So I read here and I get down to raise farm output around the world, and then I get to irrigation, and what do? Do I go right? No, that seems easier. Instead, the designer, here, me, is asking me to jump over this pull quote and move down here. Keep in mind that people have already read the pull quote because they sample and scan the big things on the page. So they're not going to stop here and read the pull quote. They're going to read, with the help of heavy irrigation and applications. So there's a pause. You don't want that pause because that's an opportunity for the lazy brain to convince the reader to bail on your article. So the easy fix for this is just not to split the column. Instead of splitting that text so that I have to jump over it, and maybe it's not a pull quote. I've seen some designs that have something like this where there's a photo in the middle, like this. Whether it's a pull quote or a photo is not really important, just the fact that there's something there. You don't want that because you don't want to split the column. You don't want people to have to jump over something to read. And the easy fix is just to take whatever it is and move it up or down. So just by moving it up, I still get the effect of having that visually interesting element there. I still have the effect of cutting down on the heavy amount of type. It's still readable, but I'm not splitting the column anymore. There we go, that looks better. I need a little more text wrap. Sorry, I'm not going to rest until I get this perfect. There we go. And I'll just move this down a little bit. There, that's how I want it. So now I still get the pull quote in, but I'm not breaking the text in any way. A person reads down here, they read farm output, and they get down here chemical fertilizers and pesticides. So there's no break while the person is reading. They don't have to skip over anything. So make sure you're not breaking text columns like that. Make the path of reading very, very simple. And if it helps, print your design out or take your sketch and draw a line and look at what you're asking people to do. It should be really easy. If I drew a line here, it would go something like this, from here to here, to here, to here, to here, to here. So very, very simple for the reader to follow. They don't have to jump over anything. That line never breaks. So don't split the column. The other thing that I've seen is sort of this checkerboard effect like we have over here on the right. And this is a very similar idea to breaking the column. Even though these columns are not interrupted in any way, it is a little difficult to understand what the reading pattern is supposed to be. So I come here and I say, you know, similar threats haunt China and other developing nations that were big beneficiaries, and I read this, and then I get down here, and then what do? Even though it's a very, very small jump, all I have to do is go over here. It seems pretty simple, but again, you're asking me to pause and jump. So I read, you know, temporarily officials insist. Being completely self-sufficient. So there's a little pause, and that entices the lazy brain to stop reading. So you don't want to do that. You want this article to flow a little bit more nicely like it does over here. And so the solution here, again, is just to move the content around to reconnect those columns. So I could do something like put this photo over here and put this column here. Actually, I wouldn't even need to put it there. I would just make this longer. So now it's nice and easy to read. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I just need to make this photo match up over here. Or I can do the opposite and I can move the photo up, get rid of this, move the photo up here, and then bring this over. Now this is the better solution. Take a second to see if you can figure out why. Pause the video if you need to. This is the better solution because I can make this side of the page match this side. So the left side has 3 columns. This side can have 3 columns now. Now this looks like an article where both pages go together. There's more consistency because the number of columns is the same on every page. When I did this solution and I brought my picture over here, look what happens. The column is a different size over here than the columns are over here. It makes this look like it doesn't belong. It doesn't look like it's the same article because the column is not the same size. So the better solution is to move this picture here and to bring this column text down here and make it 3 columns so it matches the side on the left. Okay, so take a look at your designs. Make sure that you're not splitting the column, that you're not asking people to read over a photo or over a pull quote or over a fact box. And then make sure your columns are consistently used as far as width so that they're as wide as they need to be on both, or as wide on the left side as they are on the right. Now one last thing that I will add is this looks a lot better than it did before. These elements up here kind of all combine together to form one big dominant element, which is a photo collage. I can make that a little bit more clear by bringing this photo over. And now that's clearly a photo collage at the top, right? It's combining to become one big dominant element. But there's so much text here still. Look at the right. There's so much text. The lazy part of your brain does not want to read that. It's too much. So this is where you can bring in a fact box or another pull quote, or this is where you can put your sidebar. You do need to put a sidebar, which could be like an extended fact box. So maybe what I would do is bring this in. Let's see, that needs to become 2 columns. There we go. And then I would use this area here for a fact box. And for consistency's sake, I'm just going to copy this and let's say title of box here, and then let's see, let's make this left, and then here I can start to put in my facts. Now I think those are too close. I think that's too close too. go. And now I can put facts in, I can straighten that out. But now I have much less text on the right, so it's not as scary looking to read, and I can just bring in some of these same elements. So maybe I can take this line and I can put it over the title, and that gives this more of a professional look because we have more harmony now by reusing this color and reusing this line. So that cuts down on the amount of text. So I hope what you'll get from this video lesson is not to split the column with a photo or a fact box or anything like that, and to try to reduce the amount of text on a page. One rule of thumb is that if you could put a dollar bill on your body copy and it only touches body copy, it doesn't touch anything else, then you haven't done a very good job. So a dollar bill is about this big. Let me fill that in with the color. Let's do green for $1. So on a magazine page, a dollar bill is about this big. If I put it here, it's touching photos. If I put it here, it's touching body copy and fact box. If I put it here, it's touching body copy and pull quote. So I've done a pretty good job of breaking this up so that there's not too much going on. The only area that's not so great is right here. I can put a dollar bill and it only touches my copy. So what I could do is switch these up. And now it's not as bad, but now I'm kind of asking people to jump over that, so I have some decisions I need to make. But don't split columns. Make sure that you have a small amount of text so that people don't become overwhelmed, and try experimenting with copying and pasting elements like my line and my copy to create harmony.